Hi guys, good evening. We are back with another commentary this evening for Metal Slug 3. We are going to be doing something a little bit different tonight. I'm going to have to ask y'all to pardon my dust. I've only been out of surgery for a couple of hours. They assure me that I am to not really do anything while I go and heal up and recover and stuff. And I've never really been a super huge fan of just kind of sitting around and doing nothing, so during my recovery I've decided to raw dog the hell out of these commentaries, and it should speed up the release time by about a month if I manage to pull it off. So as always, this commentary is going to be various musings and observations about the game, what I like, what I don't like, things like that. We're also going to be covering other topics like people wondering why I wanted to go and discontinue commentaries. So this recording is about 1 hour and 14 minutes long, and so I'll have plenty of time to lay out everything as I would like to lay it out and, pretty much cover everything that I want to cover. So we're going to go ahead and start by covering the commentaries and stuff and why I find it difficult to go and cover commentaries. At first I didn't really know why I didn't really care for doing commentaries. I don't really find them strenuous like they can be, but it's nothing that I can't really handle. It's not, like, I don't just hate doing them, like I don't really have, like, any sort of unjustified hate towards it or anything like that. Like, it's not a no reasoning thing. The biggest thing that I would find myself struggling with is I would literally go and play it back. Like, every video I make, I go and I play it back and I check it to see if it has any audio issues, video issues, frame pacing, things like that. I don't just render it and kind of throw it out the door a fair bit. So I'd find that as I would watch my commentary videos, I wouldn't really be satisfied with them. The footage was good, the content was okay, it wasn't really the best, but I found myself not really liking it. At first, when I would go and look at it, I would kind of quietly say to myself, God, that's really lacking life. Do I really go and, sound like that? And so when I had gone off of Seroquel, which is a very powerful neuroleptic that I was on, I noticed I had a lot more spring in my step. I'm a lot more lively and stuff. I don't really quite sound as monotone, per se. So I started this project, and I was like, okay, well, people want commentary vids. I suppose we can go and we can do some more. Not a problem. And I found that after I had done the first 2 videos, I still really wasn't quite satisfied with it. And I was sitting in a Discord server with a bunch of friends of mine, and they would be like, the videos are okay, they're not the worst things ever. There is room for improvement, but you're doing all right, they're enjoyable to watch. Why do you have an issue with this? And I would flat out tell them, hey, it just doesn't really sound right. And so a lot of the time I would go back and I would revisit it and I would try to figure out why it doesn't really sound right. And to be honest with you, it just doesn't really sound like me. And what I mean by that is the way that my audio processing works is I sound drastically different on the inside of my skull than I do when I film things. And what I mean by that is when I'm talking to somebody, I sound a lot lighter. I sound a lot more vibrant. I found out later that this is caused by the resonance inside my skull. And so when I go back and I hear it, it doesn't really sound right. There's kind of a conflict there because I'm expecting my recording to sound like me. Like I'm expecting my recording to sound like my resonance, more or less. And so I had asked about it, and it's actually a fairly common phenomenon. Another thing that's really worth tackling is anybody that's close to me knows that I am trans femme. Yes, I am a horrible transgender woman, but the main thing is even with voice training and everything else, I still have a very deep voice. I've tried voice training quite a bit, and so when I go back and I listen to these recordings, it doesn't really sound exactly how I want to sound, and I kind of realized with my voice training that I've bottomed out a fair bit. It doesn't really get any better. I've been doing it for years, and then I realized that when I use my natural voice, the voice that is untuned and running, stock essentially, it's a hell of a lot deeper than what I kind of remember it being. So in many ways, you know, I'm going and, you know, my voice is as good as it's going to get, but there's a conflict there when I go back and I listen to these recordings, because it's like, man, it's not as light as I imagined, or it's not as light as I think it should be, and it's kind of weird because it makes me rather dysphoric, you know, and I kind of struggle with it a fair bit. I mean, I enjoy doing the commentary, people enjoy my commentary, but it just doesn't really feel like it is up to the standard that I think that it should be up to. You know, it doesn't really project what I want it to project. And so I think this is one of the many struggles of transition goals. It's like my voice is a lot lighter. It has improved substantially, which is great, but it just doesn't sound right on a recording. So I am a rather large human being a little under 6'7", and I have a lot of mass to me, and my neck is relatively thick. You know, I am a thick chick, and so my voice is largely a product of that as well. So part of going and doing a lot of these commentaries is learning to accept that and learning to love it. And I kind of struggle with it a little bit. You know, like, I'm human, like everybody else. You know, some people seem to think that I'm larger than life. I personally don't see it, but they do. And a lot of people are satisfied with a lot of these videos that come out. They enjoy watching them and having a good time with them, and that's great. I am all for it, actually. I'm literally all for it. I'm all over it. The problem that I have, essentially, is that it just doesn't really feel right. And that is largely attributed to how I sound internally versus how I sound on a recording. So for a while I considered scrapping this. I had sat down and I was like, guys, should I just say fuck this? It's not really where I want it to be. You know, it's not really what I want it to be. Like, when I go and I do these videos, I do them to the best of my ability. I have the kit that I have, and I go and I make this content to the best of my ability with what I have. A lot of these videos are done on what's called a shoestring budget. And so it doesn't really cost me much of anything to go and, you know, make these films. Like, to break down the process, I do all of my recording on a Google Pixel 6. Like, all my voice recordings and stuff, the voice that you're hearing now, it is on a Google Pixel 6 Pro. At first I thought with my voice that it was a microphone thing. So I had some old singing microphones made by Shure that I had plugged in to my PC and the various setups and stuff. And I had tried recording on that as well. And it still largely sounds the same. The audio sounds a little bit more cleaned up, but it is largely the same thing. As far as the recording itself goes, all of these videos for the SNK line were recorded on the AYN Odin. When I started doing this, I was doing all of my recordings on a Mac Mini running OpenEmu. Well, the problem with OpenEmu, as wonderful as it is a good program, but the problem with it is it doesn't have MAME support. Well, any arcade support. It was supposed to be coming at some point, but it's just kind of taken a while. Either that or the project's been abandoned, so I was forced to go and look at other avenues. I didn't want to go dump a ton of cash on another PC, just to go and have a ton of accessibility, and then I was faced with the challenge of going and not being home while I go and get medical treatment in other neighboring cities that are like 4 or 5 hours away, 4 or 5 hours up and back. And so I had settled on the AYN Odin, and it was pretty solid. I had done my research on it, and I learned that I could do a lot on Android gaming in terms of emulation. And now, it doesn't run every little thing under the sun. It stops effectively at GameCube. You can run some GameCube games and PlayStation 2 titles, but it's officially done at that point. Everything beneath GameCube and PS2, it runs exceedingly well, with a little bit of tweaking and tuning. But for me, like when I was working on the setup, when I was moving more into video production and trying to make it mobile, I had settled on the AYN Odin, which at the time of purchase was a $400 device. It came with a bunch of stuff. It wasn't just the device itself. It came with like a dock and a whole mess of stuff that I'm not even going to bother getting into here. So for me to go and spend just the $400 to get the device, make it mobile, drop an SD card in it, carry my whole library on me, do filming, editing, everything, it was amazing to me. So all of my recordings are done on that as well. And I think that when stacked up against the Mac Mini that I still use from time to time, I think it does very well. A lot of people still think that I am recording on the Mac. Now, to record on the AYN mobile platform, the Odin, it requires a lot of tweaking, tuning, things like that. Because it's not, like with the Mac, it's a lot easier, I feel, because I can go click record, it does internalized audio, and then it records everything at the proper speed. It does it at 720p, 60 frames, nonstop. It's really lovely in that regard. Like, it's very, very simple. I click a button on QuickTime, I go, and then I can go, and when I was making old commentaries, I could literally go and just record on my phone, upload it to the recorder app, retrieve it from the website. Like, actually getting the recordings is a hell of a pain. And, but I'm actually able to make it happen. Then I go, open up the editor, shackle it to the film, and then it would render those commentaries at 60 frames as well. So working with the Odin, there's a lot of challenges, I think, when you actually go and you look at it, because it doesn't just say, okay, you know, your screen is blah, 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 and we're going to capture it automatically at 60. There's a lot of tweaking and tuning because the Odin runs on Android 10. The problem with running it on Android 10 is there is no native recording app built into it. It's not like 11, 12, and 13. And then to make matters worse, there is also a limit on how long recorded content could be. So the challenges with this is that I would have to tweak quality with various other settings to go and keep the quality as high as possible, while going and keeping the size constraint within reach, like within check, so I can go and do these entire games in a single sitting instead of having a bunch of editing to do and going into editing hell. And so this was one of the many challenges of going and trying to do production, well, not trying anything, I am doing it, on the AYN Odin. If it ran a newer version of Android, it wouldn't really be too bad, but given what the Odin has, what it's able to do, the price to productivity ratio is actually really nice. I can go, I can play retro games on it, I can record those retro games, I can literally do everything but make a commentary on it. And the reason why is the editing app that I use for the Odin doesn't support importing audio files. So there's a lot of tweaking and tuning that literally has to go into place, because when it records, it doesn't do an automatic 60. What it does is the app records the source. A lot of these games run at oddball frame rates. Some of them are like 53. I know this one was recording at 55. So I had to do additional tweaking and tuning to go and more or less try to force 60. And it's really kind of hard because when you go and you look at like a lot of the videos and stuff, some of them are like, oh, well, you know, that doesn't really, you know, jive properly. And so there's a lot of tweaking and tuning that's actually involved on the Odin, because I have to go into the app, set it to record at 60, because if I just leave it on auto, it will go and only record it at like 53, 55, very oddball stuff. So I have to manually force 60 frames, and then the bitrate I typically leave to auto, and it takes care of itself. The resolution, as always, is 720p. I have thought about going and doing 1080p, but since I am working with size constraints, I don't think I would reasonably be able to go and just be like, okay, we have the entire game, because the limit for the recording size is only 4 gigs. That's a limit imposed by Android. I cannot fix it unless at some point they decide to upgrade it to 11, 12, or 13. 11 is a maybe, 12 is a no, and 13 is not happening. It doesn't have the hardware for it. And so this is what I have to work around when I go and I produce a lot of these films, if you would. There's a lot of tweaking and tuning and everything else, and So after I get everything recorded in 60, I go and I double check. Like, I'm allowed to go and check the frame rate on the Mac. I'll take everything over to the Mac, the recording and everything, and I will go and I'll check. I'll open up Media Player, I'll go ahead and right click on it, and I'll view the stats for the video, verify that it's running at 60 frames. And then from there, it's a lot easier opening up iMovie, because the secret with iMovie is that it runs at the frame rate of the first piece of content in the feed. So when you go and you look at it, it'll be like, oh, okay, I recognize this as a 60 frame video. The whole entire video is going to be rendered in 60 frames now, and it makes life a lot easier. Sorry. And so what we have going on here is I'm trying to produce these videos within a lot of constraints. I have considered looking into Razer's retro handheld because it is very beefy. The trade-off with it, however, is that beefiness kind of comes at a price. It's kind of like the Xbox One X of the handheld world. It's so powerful, but it only gets like 4 hours of battery life, so I would have to constantly be charging it. So as I do these commentary videos on a mobile platform, I try to go and, since I am a stickler for trying to deliver the best quality that I can possibly deliver, this equates to a lot of tweaking, tuning, playing around with things, experimentation, just all kinds of stuff. But the one thing that I've never really been able to nail with these commentaries is a satisfaction with the audio of my voice. And so this is why for a long time I was asking people, you know, do you guys think that I should go and discontinue commentaries? I throw out polls for it quite often. And everybody that I had gone and spoken to about it, they're like, no, that is, you know, how you are and stuff. And I understand that, you know, you're not satisfied with it, but, you know, honey, that's about as good as that's going to get. And so I was like, you know what? All right, you know, that's fair. You know, I've already put in the work and stuff and everything else. It makes sense to see it full tilt. You know, I can continue working on it in the future. So that's how we got these commentary vids. I initially had plans to scrap it, but everybody else had talked to me about it, and they were like, hey, hon, you know, these videos are fine. Don't worry about your voice so much. If people complain, they're going to complain. And I said, okay. So I decided to go through with it. And as an end result of a lot of work and testing and time and effort, I'm able to go and make these videos very, very closely to what I was producing on a Mac. And that's nice. Like, it's really, really, really nice, I think. You know, and it allows me to just take it on the go and everything else, but sometimes I make these vids and I have reservations, you know, about a lot of things, because when you go and when you have perfectionism kind of running wild on you, you go and you look at things and you're like, oh, that's not good enough, I gotta go back and do it, or oh my god, this video juddered for like a split second, not happy with it, go back, re-render it. It kind of delays things. Like, it really delays things, I think, and I keep forgetting that when I go and I make these videos, I keep forgetting that I am a single solitary human being that is going and working on all this content. I don't have anything fancy like an editor, I don't have anybody on my payroll, it's just me going and making all of this content, and I forget about it sometimes. You know, I forget that fact. I go and I make it, and it's like, oh, it could be better, but I forget that when I go and I make these videos, often I'm measuring myself up against other people. I have no desire to be popular, at all. I do have desire, though, to try to match the quality of other people in my range. And so one of the many issues that I kind of struggle with, I think, with doing these is I constantly look at what they're doing and I say, okay, you know, I want to have that kind of quality because it's really, really good. And I enjoy it and it's fun to watch. And so this is why everything is shot in 60, mainly because I want the gameplay to be smooth. I left it in 720p because there was a lot of people whose internet couldn't handle higher resolution video, and then when you ask YouTube to go and like try to transcode it and stuff, the compression they use is really, really nasty. Like, I've never really been a fan of it. And so what winds up happening is you kind of sit there and you're going, okay, you know, how do I fix this, essentially? Because I want the quality, I want it to look good. I don't want to do it in 1080p and then have it scaled down. It's going to look fucking bit crushed with a lot of artifacting. I don't want to sit there and stream it at 480p. That's way too low, even though it would leave me well within the file size limit and everybody would be able to watch it. So I went ahead and I settled on 720p because damn near everybody can watch it. It's mobile friendly, like it actually fits on a cell phone screen really well. It doesn't look too small, it doesn't look too large, it doesn't look crushed, it just looks good. And so this is what I kind of settled on when I was going and doing these films. I have a couple of films, like I know my photo comps are typically in 1080. But the reason why the photo comps are in 1080p is simply because I can go and I can produce those videos well within the size limit. The video's not too big or too small. You know, it also preserves the quality of the photo. I noticed when I would do 720p photo comps, my photos would look like ass. And I hated that. Like, my photos are not the best, right? But that doesn't mean I want them to look like shit. And so that's why a lot of the photo comps are in 1080p. There was other things that kind of factored into how the videos are presented. Another reason why I chose 720p is because I noticed, and this was around the time that I was going and working on Donkey Kong Country 3. That game is long. It was well over 3 hours. I wasn't speedrunning it. I was just taking my time with it, doing the best I could with what vision I have. And I found that when the recording was done, because I did it all in a single take, the file size wound up being, I think it was like 23 gigs. That's fucking big for a 3-hour video. At least for me. So the way that the setup is rolling is I have shitty internet where I'm at. Like, I literally, like in my current residence, I literally have really bad potato net. I mean, like 1.5 megs down, half meg up. I would literally start uploading a video and never finish it at all. I would be like 2 weeks in and just, you know, not be able to finish it. So the solution that I found was I have a cell phone, Pixel 6, and it has unlimited data across the board. So I was like, and then the speeds were relatively nice. Instead of taking like 2 or 3 weeks to go and upload a video at like half a meg, I would be able to go hook my phone up to the Odin or to the Mac, because I do have tools that allow me to go and use a Android device on the Mac and like have it read data and, you know, put data on it and everything else. So what I had started doing essentially is I was like, okay, we're going to try to do a video every fucking Friday. And so the solution I found for this was pre-releasing. What I would do is I would do a batch of videos, typically over the weekend, and then I would go and pre-upload them. My phone has a reasonable amount of space on it. It's like about 120 gigs, I think, and it typically has about 60 gigs free. So what I would do is every night before I go to bed, I would have those videos uploaded to my phone and being stored on my phone, and while I would sleep, I would upload one video at a time. And since the network on my phone is already pretty fast, even though I get garbage cell reception, I would typically be able to do like a 20 gig video over the course of, I would have to say, 10 hours. It's not bad, not great. I mean, Verizon's upload speeds are pretty fucking awful sometimes, but it's better to do it over the course of 10 hours than 3 weeks. So with a lot of these projects, I find myself creating ways to go and bridge the gap between hardware constraints, what hardware can and cannot do, internet constraints, trying to find another solution for that, just all kinds of stuff. You know, there's a lot of creative fuckery that has to happen to make sure these videos get out the door. And so when my health life kind of just straight up died, I was like, okay, instead of wallowing in it, we're going to take videos to go. I'm just always kind of looking for solutions because I enjoy what I do. I'm not the best at it, I'm okay with that, but I still enjoy it and I still like to share. So this was just one of those things, I think. So I have to be innovative with how I make it. You know, like I may not have an editing team, I may not have a $6,000 PC to go and actually do these on, but I'm still able to do it. And I'm still able to go and do a new video every Friday. So I do take time to myself every now and then, you know, which is what I'm doing with my health life. But at the time of recording this, the entire Summer of Arcade multi-month event is already done. It's uploaded. It's pre-uploaded. Everything looks good, sounds good. And people are going to enjoy it. I thought about going and just doing videos all the time, and I decided against it because I would run a very serious risk of burnout. And a lot of people are like, oh no, burnout's really not that bad. It's fucking awful. When you go and you pour a lot of time and effort into making little movies and stuff, you get burnt out really fast, you know, especially if you juggernaut it. Like, what would wind up happening is, I'm a relatively busy woman, so what winds up happening is, on the weekends I would be like, man, I got a weekend to myself, let's make videos. So a lot of Let's Plays that I would do, well, a lot of long plays, my mistake, that I would go and do, I would do over the course of a weekend. Like, I was squeezing out 5 videos over the course of 2 days, and that's playing the game, rendering the game, you know, getting it uploaded. Like, a lot of the time when one was being worked on and another was being uploaded, I treated it like a conveyor belt in many ways. So I would go and I would be like, oh, okay, we're going to go ahead and just do this. While I have time, we're going to do this. And so that is why I was able to go and keep the pace that I was going at. It's like, okay, lovelies, we're going to go ahead and have a new video every Friday, and it worked for me because I could pace it out to where by the time I wanted new videos to hit, I had already recovered and recharged enough to where I could just be like, oh, not a problem, I'm ready to go. A lot of people would get really upset because they would sit there and they would ask me, oh, why don't you do a new video every day? How in the hell would I do that? You know, like, it sounds funny, right? But a lot of people that see these content creators going and doing a new video every day, they're either extremely short videos, like a 10-minute news video, if, you know, that's their thing. Or a lot of the time they would have a team that would go and help them. They would have, like, a partner that would give them a hand. I know a lot of the Switch channels that I watch, they frequently have partners that work with them. They have one doing content, the other one doing editing, and then of course you have the uploading time. So I determined that with file sizes being mammoth, me being a single person trying to make it happen, and everything else, it was not feasible. Like, it was nowhere near feasible for me to try to do daily vids. And so I stuck with weekly vids. And then every time I have like a health scare or something, every time my health starts to tank, I take time off. The current structure that we are using is I am doing what's called weekly seasonal. And what I mean by that is, instead of going and doing videos each and every week and just banging it out and banging it out and banging it out, I'm pacing myself so I can actually recover. And I've decided to do videos for a couple of months and then take some time off. Videos for a couple of months, take more time off. And I think it's kind of important for me to care for myself in that regard. Because if I don't, nobody's going to have to worry about videos because nothing's going to be happening. Like, at all. During the time off, I often plan my next run. Like the time off that I literally got from doing the summer special. When I decided that I wanted to go and do commentary again, I planned it out. I was like, okay, what games do I want to do commentary for? Do I want to do commentary for all of them or just some of them? And so I use the recharging period often to plan. I get to relax a little bit. I get to spend time with my family and my girlfriend and everything else. And it allows me to make better choices. You know, because when I was going and just juggernauting release after release after release, the big issue that I would have is, okay, what game do I want to do next? It sounds like a relatively simple thing to ask, you know? Like, for anybody that can see properly, it's very simple. It's like, oh, I'll just pick this game and play it. But when you have low vision, not every game can be beaten. And this was a really rude awakening for me. Like, I would literally sit down, I would try to go and do a game, and I would be like, oh, geez, there's no way in hell that I can do this game. Other games that I've ran across had bugs. I had a viewer mail me in a copy of Nightmare Creatures 2. I love that game. It is a very buggy game on PlayStation, but I do love it. And so I found that as I was doing the run, I would have to kick on infinite health because what was going on is there would be certain portions of the game where I would just randomly die or get stuck on a door, and so I would have to go and do research on the side. I would research the issue, and a lot of the time it would be a well-known issue. And everybody would be like, just load previous save, or just reboot game, or just do this, just do that. And so the problem that I have is I like to do a lot of these games in a single sitting. I don't like to reload any save unless absolutely necessary. I feel that it kind of takes away from the run a little bit. The only time that I had to literally go and redo a save was for Resident Evil 3. And that is because one of the stone puzzles, well, one of the orb puzzles was bugged. And I had to soft edit it, like fade out and then fade back in to literally go and bridge the gap with that. But with all the other games, I prefer to do them all in a single take. I feel that it keeps things fluid. I'm not terribly savvy when it comes to editing and stuff. My editing skills are rudimentary at best, so is my transition skills when it comes to going and moving from scene to scene and trying to make it blend and everything else. So I have to pick out the games that I play very carefully. Some games I cannot go and beat while blind, and I know because I will do runs prior to going and deciding if I want to go and do a run for it to go and record and post on here on YouTube. I have to see what kind of bugs a game has, as was with the case with the Nightmare Creatures. The girl that had sent it to me, she was super sweet, and I had to message her back, and I said, "Hon, I can't record this." I said, I thank you greatly, right, for going and mailing it to me. I'm eternally grateful for it. This shit is so fucking buggy that I cannot record it. I would literally have to go reboot, load up a new save, you know, just all kinds of shit to make it happen. And at the end of the day, I was like, hey, I don't want to feel like you're walking away taking a loss. I refunded the purchase price she spent on the game because it wasn't cheap, and then I also refunded her for the shipping fee because it was coming from another continent. So not every game can actually go and be done. It either will have a lot of bugs or it'll have visual limitations that I cannot compensate for. So while I take time off, these are things that I investigate. I just play games casually in the background and I'll figure out if I can actually do anything with it. And so a lot of a blind gamer long plays is not so much impulsion. I don't just wake up and be like, all right, we're doing this. I have to be very considerate and careful with the games that I pick. If it's too buggy, I won't do it. If I'm struggling like so damn hard that the video is going to be way longer than expected, I won't do it. I try to make these videos about as short as I can. I understand that a lot of people like longer videos, like, hey, I really love an 8-hour epic, but the thing is I try to keep these videos under 3 hours. And I do that for the sake of watchability. A lot of people these days, they go and they're very busy people, they have lives and, they work hard and they have like family lives and kids and stuff. And so I notice with a lot of content delivery, a lot of people don't have like a ton of time. Sometimes they sneak in some YouTube at work, other times they do it as something to listen to when they're on the road or when their family's out of the house. So I try to keep a lot of these videos bite-sized. And so that's why I pick a lot of the retro games, like a lot of the older games, because a lot of these older games, they were short and sweet and, they didn't really fuck around too much. A lot of newer games are actually very long and I find the content to be boring. I decided with SNK games because I enjoy SNK titles. I'm bad at them, but I do enjoy them. And so I wanted to share the experience with my godchild because, he had never seen stuff like this. He had never played anything like this. And then I also wanted to do arcade games because that's my childhood. I love it and appreciate it so much. It's so good. And then there was another thing where a lot of these arcade games were very short and sweet. Some of them were actually too long. When I was doing Crossed Swords, that run was well over 2 hours long because it is a very lengthy game for an arcade game. And as an end result, I had tried recording it 5 times with various settings, trying to keep it within size constraints. And if I'm playing a game for way too long as well and I start to get tired, everything kind of goes to hell. And I'll generally scrap an entire running of the game, as well as get rid of the recording of it as well, because I realize that everything starts to degrade. So out of all the SNK games that I went and found and picked up and ripped ROMs off of and everything else, I noticed that I had to literally go and pick out ones that were a little on the shorter side. I focused on action-centric games because they're fun and they're exciting to watch. Metal Slug's kind of goofy on top of it. Like, a lot of SNK's titles are known for being really weird. I have also looked into the possibility of doing Capcom games on top of it, but Capcom cartridges are kind of a bitch to go and source, and they're also kind of a bitch to go and rip ROMs off of to use on an emulator. So I'm literally going and looking at it and stuff. I actually like to own the games that I go and I, stream and stuff and record off of, and, I've never really been a fan of going to a ROM site unless I own the game and the game is like starting to fail. Like, if I notice that I go to rip a game and I notice like I have, a bad third disc, right? I'll go and just look up the third disc and stuff and then use that on the emulator, but I prefer to actually buy the damn game that I'm making content off of. I don't just like going and randomly downloading it. I don't give a shit if they're old games or not, I like the pride of buying it, essentially, to say, hey, I got a legit copy, it feels pretty good, But, no, yeah, it's just been kind of a hell of a thing and stuff. There's a lot of time and effort that actually goes into these videos, and there's a lot of planning, and it's been kind of a wild ride, I think. I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the learning experience. I like learning new things all the time, and, doing this has been no different. It wasn't an exemption of the rule, So, a lot of these SNK games are on the shorter side. A lot of them are action-heavy, because people like watching action games. I know a lot of people are going to get pissed off because I'm not doing it in X amount of lives or anything like that, but the entire purpose of this run is to literally go to enjoy the run, to fuck up, to have fun with it, so I threw that crap in free play mode and just ran with it. Oh god, I hated this boss. I really love this flying segment here, but I just hated fighting the boss. I think this segment's done really good, but sometimes all the crap that's bouncing around the screen, you really can't escape that crap. You just can't. But, yeah, my first ones that I had started off recording was Metal Slug, and then I moved into other action games. I tried to go for weird games, I think, this shot around, because I noticed a lot of people, when they do SNK titles, they do, like, the classics. They don't really go into the obscure titles too much, the ones that have, like, robot babies and everything else. And so when I was going and doing these with my godson and stuff, I was like, hey man, you want to play some weird games? And he was like, yeah, I'd love to play some weird games, like he's at that age where if it's gross, he's all over it, right? So when I was going through the roster and stuff, I had skipped over sports games. Like, SNK has a lot of sports games. They had a lot of fighting games too. And the thing is I'm actually really good at fighting games, but I find them incredibly boring to watch. So, I mean, there was like a lot of Art of Fighting and King of Fighters and, of course, Samurai Showdown. And, it was cool that I was able to go and find these games and, rip copies off of them for personal play, but I find I don't really enjoy recording them that much. So, literally, when I was doing these recordings, they're all pretty much shooters. They're either shoot-em-ups or bullet hells or run-and guns. Like, I wanted to have a very strong emphasis on action with it, I think, and so I left out sports games, I left out fighting games. Fighting games have been kind of getting a lull recently a little bit. Like, they were making a comeback there for a little bit, but now they're kind of like starting to die off again. I figure there's a lot of people that go and do fighting games that exhibit skill and stuff, going and perfecting rounds and everything else, and it's like I'm okay at the games. I'm not the best at them. I'm not going to be perfecting rounds or anything. And at least with Metal Slug and other shoot-em-ups and stuff, I can literally go and I can have fun with it and be completely awful with it and just keep on progressing and, you know, using continues and defeating bosses. And I just wanted to emphasize on an honest experience, I think. And when I was going and doing it, that kind of bothered a lot of people, I noticed, because I would talk to them about it. They're like, well, you know, shouldn't you just try to be the best? And the thing is with some games I do strive to be the best, like with Resident Evil and Silent Hill, various speedruns and everything else, I do strive for it because that's, you know, I like the challenge. But when it comes to like old arcade games and stuff, I mainly strived to go and have fun with it. Because in many ways I'm going and reliving my childhood, and I remember how fun these games were when I was growing up. I didn't take it too seriously because, you know, my godson's going and playing these games, he's having a good time, and I feel like when you constantly focus on, like, dude, you're dying too much, or dude, you know, this, dude, that, you know, I feel like it kind of kills the fun factor. I didn't want me and my godson to sit down and have a bad experience with it. I wanted to go kick on free play and just let him have a complete and utter blast with it. You know, that's the experience I wanted him to have. These games are already hard. They're not easy. None of SNK's games are easy. And so I didn't want him to be discouraged. I didn't want him to be frustrated with it. I just wanted him to go share the experience. That way I could sit down after he goes and beats it, or I beat it, whoever actually manages to finish the damn thing. I wanted to be able to sit there, have that moment with him, look next to him and be like, hey man, that was a lot of fun. What'd you think? And, you know, that's what I wanted for him, essentially, and stuff. He's never going to have the rush of playing this at a standard arcade cabinet. Like, he's never going to have to worry about shoving quarters in, right? So with that focus kind of off the table, it kind of gravitates, since you no longer are trying to go and experience that premium rush of like shoving change in the damn machine. The focus had changed to him just having raw enjoyment. And so I didn't want him to be frustrated with it. I sure as hell didn't want to be frustrated with it. I just wanted to sit down and have a good experience, and I wanted that for him as well. So these are like a lot of things that I think about when I do these videos. You know, like, people ask me, they're like, who is your target audience? Are you going for hardcore gamers? No, not really. I'm just going for people that just enjoy the game. Like, honestly, you know, like, if you enjoy Metal Slug, if you like SNK, if you don't really care about me dying every 5 seconds from not being able to see jack shit, chances are you're probably going to enjoy these videos. And that's cool. You know, that's where I'm at with it. That's what I wanted to achieve with it and everything else. And, you know, I think I've done an okay job with that. The goal is to have fun. You know, are you really having fun if you're watching a person that's going and sweating all the time? Now, I'm sure that there are people out there that'll honestly sit there and say, oh yeah, that's a lot of fun, I really enjoy it. And, you know, if you enjoy it, that's fine, you're allowed to. But the mass majority of people that I had spoken to about it do not. They're like, no, we do not like to see somebody go and be frustrated. We do not care if they die, but we do not like to see them pissed. It is very boring and it's not very fun to watch. And so I just said, okay, you know, that's cool. You know, like, I ask people, the fucked up thing about it, well, it's not even really fucked up, it's just more honest, I feel. I don't sit there and try to guess what people like. What I do is I go and I try to make the video, and my goal is to have fun while doing it, because I know that if I am having fun, that the viewer is most likely having fun as well. Some games on the SNK line I'm literally playing for the first time. And I'm incredibly bad at it. Like, super bad at it. And so I had, when I was going and showing off previews, I had one woman, oh man, I don't know what the hell her problem was, but she had complained that she does not like watching videos where the person does not have their shit together. And I think it's kind of a piss poor way of, like, looking at it. Like, expecting somebody to always go and always be good at the game all the time is just very obnoxious. I've never really gone and, you know, had my proverbial shit together in much of anything. And to be fair, I don't even really think it's that possible to go and have your complete and utter shit together on every single game that you go and play. And so what I did was I wound up taking feedback from that, and I flat out asked her, I was like, okay, what is your idea of having your shit together? Is it just knowing where everything is at? Or is it just, like, what is your definition of this? How do you define this? And so she went as far as to say, oh, hey, it's just knowing how to do everything. And I was like, so you want something that's rehearsed? Well, no. And it's like she's sitting there trying to feed me this. And I'm going and I'm watching her, and it's like, okay, well, if it's not rehearsed, if you're essentially, ironically, doing a blind run, as you would be, how would you know where everything is at? And I debated this. I flat out told her, I was like, how do you expect me to have my shit together on some games that I am playing for the first time? I would have to, for Metal Slug, I had to acclimate myself to it, and still, I die a lot. But I'm actually able to go and keep the video moving along at a reasonable pace, even with my various discrepancies. That takes rehearsing. It just, like, I can't just pop in a game and be like, okay, I'm going to be instantly good. We're going to go ahead and do this. It's not very feasible. It's not very realistic. And so I kind of laugh a little bit because this poor woman is trying to debate this point. And she's like, it just has to be good right off the bat. And it's like, nobody's ever going to know how to play the game perfectly the first time that they run it. A lot of the speedrunners and the hitless runs that you see are done because the person playing the game has done it so many times that they have broken it down to a science. A lot of people forget this. Like, seriously, they go and they forget the fact that, we're gonna go and just watch this hitless run. Oh, they're so good. Yes, they're amazingly good. They're so good at it, and it's because they put in time, effort, and dedication towards their craft. That's how the hell you accomplish that. Nobody's ever good immediately. They're good because they spent hours perfecting it. Some people spend days perfecting it, depending on the game. I have a friend of mine, he has well over 1,000 hours in various shmups that he plays, and he has that shit down to a science. Now, when I came back and I started doing these games, I hadn't touched these games for 20 years. So I'm not only rusty, I'm visually impaired. And so the probability of getting it down to a science is really, really low. Like, it is possible, I think. If I really just ground it out, yes, I could make hitless runs. It would be a pain in my ass, but I could still accomplish it. But looking for various blurred patterns on the screen and stuff, and, I do recognize most blurs, and I feel that if I ground it out, it would be possible. But expecting perfect gameplay all the time just really doesn't work, so instead of choosing to be frustrated with it, instead of sitting there and saying, oh my god, this is awful, I made the choice to just have fun. That's it. I just made the choice to have fun. Fuck it, kick on free play, enhance the graphics a little bit. Go, die, be bad, and have fun with it. That's where I'm at with that. This is not a pro gaming channel. This is I'm gonna play whatever the hell I want, how I want channel, and if people like it, that's great. I'm glad to share it with them. But I think that it creates a happier experience because you're not stressing. You know what I mean? Like, you're not stressing so hard that you're like, oh my god, if I fuck up, I have to scrap the run. Hell no, I'm gonna go die and get shot at and everything else, and I'm gonna have enemies creeping up on me. It's gonna be a relatively goofy experience. You're gonna hear my character screaming quite often. Why? Because I'm bad at it. And strangely enough, I'm okay with that. And so I just kind of laughed, and I had presented my argument to this woman, and she had nothing. She literally had nothing. Everybody else was kind of snickering about it a little bit because I was going, and during the debate, I wasn't even really trying, strangely enough. Like, I wasn't, like, going hardcore into it, and, things weren't really getting heated and pressed. I was just kind of sitting there going, okay, how do you define this? Why the hell would I want that? And how could you expect this? And once I told her that, it was the result of, like, constant rehearsing to go and, do runs like that, she had rested her case very fast. And so this had led to a point where I was like, okay, she claims to go and do YouTube. Let's go and check out her content. And so I popped in. I was looking at her videos and stuff at the time, and she was, oh man, she was streaming The Sims, I believe. And so she was like, first look, Sims 3. And I said, okay, that's cool. So I went ahead, it was a 5-hour recording, and I sat down, and I watched all of it. You know, I got up close on the flat panel, and I was like, okay, we're going to go ahead and watch this. And I found that she was victim of her own advice. You know, I had no idea what the hell she was doing, getting her character killed left and right, you know, and it was just kind of ridiculous, per se, you know, and I just kind of sat there and I was like, alright, how the hell can you expect perfection out of people? How can you expect, you know, this unrealistic standard if you're not currently holding it yourself? You know, and I realized at that point that more or less it wasn't even really worth debating anymore at that point. She tried for a couple more days to hammer home the point, and the only thing I was really thinking in the back of my mind is, lady, you are a victim of your own advice. It's not too often that I get to say that. You know, like, it's not too often I get to sit down and be like, yeah, you know, you probably really shouldn't be giving this advice if you're not really capable of applying it yourself. And it just really, for me, I just kind of shook my head a little bit, and it's kind of weird how unrealistic some of the standards are. You know, and I just kind of cringe a little bit. Like, being on YouTube has been a wild experience. Especially doing, like, these commentaries and stuff. And it's just kind of a hell of a thing, you know, because people will often impose what they think is good onto you. Like, they will want you to mold to whatever the hell it is that they think is good. And me, I just want to have fun with it. That's really what it boils down to. I mean, there's a reason why, you know, I never monetized. There's a reason why there's no donation link. You know, no Patreon, nothing like that. It's because I want to sit down and have fun. It's not here to go and be monetized. It's here because I enjoy these games and I want to share them with people. And I guess somewhere along the line, people just kind of stopped realizing that. Like, the way that people treat their content on YouTube is very unusual, I think. Most YouTubers I talk to these days, I ask them, I'll be like, hey, you know, why do you make your content? What got you started? And almost everybody that I talk to, they're like, well, I wanted to try to make money and get big. And it's so disheartening. Like, it really fucking sucks. It doesn't suck that they want to make money. It sucks because they say that they want to make money, but it doesn't really actually appear that they enjoy what they do. And I think that when you enjoy what you do, when you sit down and say, oh, hey, you know, I really like this game, I want to share it with people, and it's going to be awesome, I think it just creates a better experience. So it was really weird for me because a lot of people are like, well, I wanted to make money, or I just wanted to do videos, and a lot of people kind of view YouTube as a very quick cash grab, and it just kind of, for me, I think it kind of defeats the purpose of making entertainment, per se, you know, because YouTube is an entertainment platform. And it's very unusual for me. You know, like, it's really unusual for me because I couldn't really imagine going and making content that I myself did not enjoy making. Like, if I find myself making content and I'm just not feeling it, like, maybe I get 3/4 the way through it, I'm just not feeling it, it's just not vibing, I will cancel it. I would rather scrap an entire video than fucking put out miserable garbage. If I am not enjoying myself, there is really no reason for it to be there. You know, I mean, granted, I have some games I rage at, but rage can be pretty goddamn funny sometimes. You know, and so a lot of things that people don't really realize is that, going and making YouTube your living is incredibly hard. You have to deal with demonetization all the time. You have to deal with copyright all the time. You have to literally be scrutinized by advertisers all the time to see if they like your content and they feel it's appropriate. I had people that were up my ass about it. They're like, man, you're putting in the work. Go and get paid for it. When YouTube asked me to monetize, when they said the monetization was something I was eligible for, I looked into it. Like, I literally looked into everything that monetization was about, and I was like, oh, I can't swear. What the fuck? Oh, I can't have gory games. What the hell is this shit? Oh, I can't talk about certain things. Oh, okay, there goes freedom of speech, I guess. You know, you can't do this, you can't do that. You got to be friendly towards advertisers. You can't swear. You can't have anything that, you know, has too much blood. You can't have certain types of music. And even if you go and, you know, get permission to use this music, they will go and copyright strike your ass anyways. I have 18 fucking examples of songs that are used on my videos that I have permission to use. And as an end result of this, when I would go and I would get the copyright strike, I would appeal it and I would be like, right, I can use this, and I would forward the necessary paperwork. And I found after a while that an actual human being does not review this. They give you canned responses, and then from there they're just like, well, the person who submitted the copyright strike is, you know, saying that you do not have permission. I would go, I would look up the email, I would look up who was actually issuing the strike, and I would realize it would lead to like a fucking junk email that is not even related to the company a lot of the time and stuff. And so when people would go and like I would ask them, why do you make videos? I want to make money. And I would just go and I would think about this in the back of my head a lot of the time. It's like, why would you go through that aggravation of doing that? You know, like, why would you go through the aggravation of saying, hey, I want to make money on a platform that is constantly trying to censor me and cram its dick in my ass? And so with my videos, a lot of people were really hounding me for monetization, and I said, no, if I'm going to do these videos, I'm going to do them for fun. I'm going to play what I play, with whom I want to play it with, and I'm going to go and have fun while doing it. I'm not going to worry about making money. I'm not going to worry about monetization. I'm not going to go and sweat so much crap, because when you go and you sweat it, like when you try to shackle monetization to it, essentially, you stop having fun because it becomes stressful. The same thing applies to Twitch. Believe it or not, like I used to stream on Twitch a little bit. I was okay at it, you know, like I realized that live streaming is very draining. I'd rather go and make videos. But you couldn't do a lot of things on Twitch either. You had to watch what you say, or else you could go and get a ban. You had to literally go and worry about the music that you ran, and, you know, like, I'm a moldy oldie from Twitch. I remember back when we could just go and fucking watch movies on Twitch before we had bots. And nowadays, what really broke it for me, the last time I streamed, I was playing Mercenaries, Playground of Destruction, and there was just some wackadoo crap that had happened on stream. I went ahead and used a bunker buster and just demoed this entire building. And I'd gotten excited and I said, that is how the fuck you get that done. And as a consequence of saying that particular phrase, I was banned for a month. And I said, you know, this really just isn't worth it. You know, I sat back and I looked at it and I said, you know, I can understand hate speech, because hate speech isn't free speech because it's being done at the expense of another, you know, in their existence. I can understand if it was like calling for violence or something like that. Like, I can understand if it was some repugnant shit. But I find with a lot of these platforms, you know, they don't really allow me to go and have any sort of free agency. As soon as you sign on to go and start monetizing and stuff, you pretty much lose all of that freedom. And I didn't want to lose that. I wanted to create what I want, when I want, how I want. And there was past a certain point where I just kind of said to myself, I'd rather just have the freedom. I don't need the cash, I don't want the cash. It is not worth my sanity, essentially. And so, with a lot of these videos, you know, I've had some people say, hey, why is there no donation link? And I literally just say, hey dude, it's free, don't fucking worry about it. If you want to support me, show up, hang out. You know, you don't have to like, you don't have to comment, just show up and enjoy yourself. you know, just show up and enjoy yourself. That's all you got to do. It's really that easy. And so people do. They show up, they enjoy themselves. A lot of people hang out in the Discord, they go, they talk, they do all kinds of fun stuff, you know, and it's just really, really lovely, I think, and it's kind of moving towards the goal that I'm trying to achieve, where it's more focused about the game and the entertainment and the experience they have versus the constant stress of, am I constantly worrying about producing something that everybody's going to love and that everybody's going to go and give tons of likes and comments and everything else. You know. So when you take out that stress, it just creates a better experience, I think. You know, and I'm a lot happier doing it as a consequence of that. Oh god, this guy again. Jesus fucking Christ. I never liked this boss. I'm glad he's on my side. But, yeah, you know, so it's something that I get to think about a lot as I take this very strange journey through YouTube and stuff. I've thought about redoing a lot of things. When I had revamped the channel, everybody was like, hey, you know, we really like the trailer, but, you know, why not to some better music, essentially? And in many ways, even the channel trailer was kind of sacrificed a little bit. Because I had to use a pre-made template that had music that I could readily use, and so that's pretty much where that channel trailer came from. It wasn't some advanced, incredibly well thought out thing that I had done, you know, like it was literally me looking at the template, then looking at all the clips that I wanted to use, and then figuring out how to make those clips work with the template and the music that the template has. And basically, fate was on my side a little bit because people loved it. You know, they were like, hey, I really like this, but there was a lot of people that are like, you know, Raym, you primarily listen to heavy metal. We're really surprised that this is not rocking heavy metal. And so, like, I had thought about it, and I was like, you know, I could go and get permission from my favorite small bands that I listen to go and use their songs, which I would love to do. But knowing that as soon as I upload it, it's going to get copyright striked because we literally have people that don't even own the music striking it, it really just kind of, it kills the point of it. Like, when I go and do content, I do not want to spend all of that time living in copyright hell, essentially. So it's been, for me at least, it's my YouTube hobby has primarily been a journey of constant adaptation, learning, evolution, all that stuff, you know, and it's very refreshing, I think, to talk about it a little bit, because a lot of people hound me for this kind of stuff all the time. You know, they're like, oh, tell us about it, tell us what you like and what you don't like, and, you know, I don't even really like talking about what I don't like about it a little bit, because then it just feels like I'm whining and bitching for the sake of whining and bitching, and I don't really care for that crap. I really don't. But when I was going and doing this Metal Slug commentary, the problem with going and doing all the Metal Slugs back to back is the fact that they haven't really changed much. Like, past 3, they really haven't evolved. It's more of the same old that you would come to expect out of any Metal Slug title, and so as an end result, it leaves me with very little original things to say. Some of the bosses are reused, a lot of the zombies are reused, I mean, the art assets are updated every now and then, but they're largely the same stuff over and over again. I mean, it's good that they use the same stuff over and over again to a certain extent, because it's stuff that already works, right? Like, it's already shown to be viable and successful and super fun, and that's great, but from a commentary standpoint, it leaves it as something that is incredibly difficult to make commentary for. Like, I could be like, look how I feverishly shoot the shit out of this nipple on this door, and, you know, I could do it. It wouldn't be great, but I could do it, you know, and that's just kind of how that is. So, you know, it's really just kind of strange. You know, I have a tendency to wing a lot of my commentary as well. I'm very off the cuff with it. a lot of people are like, how come you don't write a script? And it's like, what? like, what the fuck are you talking about, a script? You know, I'm not doing a video essay, it's just commentary. Thoughts and musings and various other things, and when you're essentially rocking the same game over and over again across different sequels and crap, there doesn't really leave a lot of original thought there. The only one that is getting off the hook is literally Metal Slug X, and that is because Metal Slug X is a literal rehash of 2 with various things changed. And so I can go and I can talk about that and cover it and crap, but with the rest of the games I'm going to be shooting the same fucking zombies, defeating the same bosses, using the same characters for the most part. Shit's not actually going to change until I go and start playing other SNK titles. The only reason I even opted to do the Metal Slug games is because I love them and I wanted all of them under the belt. The only ones that did not make it under the belt were for the Neo Geo Pocket Color, I believe. Yes, I have Neo Geo Pocket Color planned in the background. The problem that I had with it is I couldn't get them to record right, and I am in the process of fixing that shit. But yeah, you know, there wasn't really, like with these Metal Slug titles, there wasn't really a lot that I could really say, you know. Like, take this alien boss, for example. I could say some total cheeseball shit like, oh my god, I am in this enemy's deep embrace, and look at its exposed brain on top of its stitched head, and look at all of those electrical conduction coils poking out of the top of its skull, and how H.R. Geiger-esque it is. H.R. Geiger would be proud, and, you know, like, I could see myself doing this, and it wouldn't really be great to me. And then this boss already has a shit ton of health on top of it, so it's just gonna be me dying over and over. You know, and it's just some really kind of super silly and super goofy stuff, and you know, it really just doesn't lend itself. And or I could go as far as to say, oh my god, look at its eyeball and how its eye tracks me as I move around the arena, getting hit with shockwaves and dying horribly. And you know, and I know somebody's gonna be like, well, why don't you get inside the Metal Slug and finish it off? And the thing is I will die so fast inside that damn thing. You know, like, I literally would just die in a very horrible, horrible fucking manner as soon as I go and, you know, start trying to pull that shit off, essentially. You know, like, I could literally... The problem that I have with making commentaries a lot of the time when it comes to stuff like this is, and this is an unfortunate curse that I have a tendency to do with everything. If I go and I'm doing commentary and I start to get bored, like actually bored, like, oh my god, my brain aches kind of bored, what'll wind up happening is I'll resort to making fun of it. And the thing with these commentaries is I'm trying to keep some sense of seriousness with it, you know what I mean? Like, I am making the attempt to keep some form of seriousness with the entire ordeal, you know? And so when I go and when I get like super bored with some of it, I try to refrain from making fun of it, because I'm trying to show some shred of respect for these old games. Like, I don't think anybody would really want to hear like me sit there and be like, look at this War of the Worlds rejects, and look at that gap in between its eyes, and oh my god, what kind of dentist does this boss have? Look at those teeth, they're fucking perfect and square. And what the hell is wrong with this alien's tongue? Oh my god, why is it green? Like, I could literally just sit there and knock this poor bastard day in and day out, and it would be the worst shit ever. You know, just kind of continue on with it and be like, oh my god, is he related to Nemesis? Look at all those stitches in his face. And what kind of truck did he have to go and fuck to get those goddamn exhaust pipes hanging out of his head? Like, I could go full tilt with it and it would just be the worst. Oh my God, would it be the worst? And so I try to refrain from it a little bit because I don't want to disrespect the damn game while doing this. And, you know, it's kind of a tough thing. And, you know, I can make other observations, like sitting there and being like, oh my God, with those tiny little bitch boy arms, how the fuck does he hold up that tank? I couldn't do it. I just really just could not do it at all. Like, I have to fight back on that crap so hard because I'm just sitting here going, Jesus Christ. And then, you know, constantly dying while trying to kill the boss and everything else is just kind of like a shit show and a half. And, you know, like, the problem is, so with this boss in general, right, the color palette is fucking wacky. And what I mean by that is everything looks like it's either a really weird dark gray or a bullshit shade of tan. And as an end result, it has a tendency to blend in. So one of the main reasons that I was struggling with it as hard as I did is because I was grossly unaware of the tank that was being held in its hands. And so the entire time I was doing this, I was like, alright, here we go. You know, this is what we're doing. And it wasn't until later that my godson is like, why don't you get in the tank? And I was like, what tank? You know, like literally just what tank? And, yeah, that's how I learned that his little bitch boy arms are like fucking holding the tank and shit. And it was just kind of a hell of a thing. Like, my nephew gave me so much hell during the filming of this. He was like, you know, I'm used to you being bad, but this is awful. And instead of me being like, shut the fuck up, I was like, you know, that's fair. You know, like, I didn't even want to argue with him about it. I didn't even want to debate it because I knew that some segments were just bad, right? And Metal Slug 3 is a pretty tough game. It's one of the harder ones, you know. I mean, all the enemies had, like, all the mini-bosses and stuff had more health, and it was just a hell of a thing, and... Ugh. But, yeah, I had so much fun doing it, even though everything was just so bad. Feels good to see those credits, though. Like, it's kind of weird because... even though I have free play on, right, I find that the greatest challenge going and filming this is not giving up, because when you die so much you get discouraged and you're like, God, so you have to like muscle through it. And so every time I was beating one of these SNK games, I would feel a sense of gratification and deep satisfaction, because at the end of the day, I know that even with free play on, I could have easily said, fuck it, given up at any point. But when you go and you can barely see it and you just keep pushing on and you just keep soldiering through it, you feel good when you do it. Like, I find that even with AIDS, it doesn't really take away from the challenge, because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, Jesus Christ. Oh, I've got dick on the brain. At the end of the day, the biggest problem that I have is not so much with the game, it's mainly with myself and my own frustrations, I think. So when I actually get to see these credits roll, I literally sit there and I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm proud of that. And I know that somebody's going to be like, but you had free play on. Yes, this is true. But at the same time, when you go and you struggle with it, when you're frustrated and when you feel like giving up with it, and you finally get to a point some hour and 14 minutes into it where you see the credits roll, it feels good. It feels really good because, you know, you're showing yourself that you're not willing to quit, that you're willing to put the time, the energy, and the effort in, and you're willing to show people that you can be disabled and still get it done. So with that thought in mind, I wanted to go thank everybody for coming out and stuff. You guys make it great, and until next time.